Solidarity Works says, a small win. Kyle Kulinski just praised the political genius of Zoran Mamdani for talking to and winning over Republicans, conservatives, and magnetized people. Interesting. Cenk might have helped him see reason. I really doubt it. I bet if you asked him, he said, no. Mamdani doing it is great. Cenk doing it is terrible. Okay. Well, did Mamdani do this? Okay, I don't know. You should ask Kyle.
Oh, so embarrassing.
Yeah. So basically implying before even getting into the Kyle thing, he basically implies that Zoran Mamdani like took his advice. He followed the Cenk playbook. He went around and had beers with a bunch of MAGA folks in New York City and went on like Charlie Kirk's stage and, Laura Ingram's show or whatever the fuck Cenk has been up to. That's how Zoran won. I guess we've been paying attention to different races because, as we talked about several times on the show, Zoran basically went against all of the advice, not only from Cenk, but from Ana. He did call Trump a fascist. He did call MAGA a fascist movement, and he didn't pander to all these fascist commentators and go on their show and have beers with them, right? That's just not what he did at all. That's not to say he went out there and, spoke down to or condescended Republican voters in New York. No, I think he ran on a campaign and championed issues that appealed to everyone in the city, hence his victory, at least in the primary. But to act like he followed Cenk's advice is just ridiculous. And then to throw in the petty potshot at Kyle once more, again, after getting totally owned, totally destroyed in that debate. It's like, get over it, bro. Get over it, bro. You got crushed.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And here's what Zoran actually did that was effective and that Cenk had the resources to do but never did. Instead of just coming out here and glazing Marjorie Taylor Greene and pretending that she agrees with him about something that she will 100% turn around about, instead of coming out here and pretending that Josh Hawley's a real populist, these are all things that we'll debunk later on. He didn't even bother to go walk outside his studio and interview people and say, hey, why did you feel like you should vote for Donald Trump? Why did you feel like you should stay home? Why didn't the Democrats earn your vote this time around? That is not what Cenk has done, right? That is what he's pretending he's done, that he's done some sort of voter outreach program, that he's been in the streets really learning how regular people feel. That is not true at all. Zoran did that, and we can take a look at it here, guys. This is Zoran from November 15th, 2024. So this is right after the election. He's hitting the streets. He's out here. Let's listen.
What Trump did in the first 4 years, Fordham Road saw something where Kamala couldn't do that.
There were young voters who didn't vote for her because of the genocide, and I wouldn't have voted for her if I did, but I did vote for her, obviously, because I have common sense.
Can you tell me a little bit more about why you didn't vote?
Since you're out here, Gaza, who should I vote? Either side will go ahead, send bombs from here to kill my brothers and sisters.
Palestine issue, and then other issue is like Russia and then Ukraine. He stopped that war. That's why I bought him.
You can't say you're a Democrat and stand for the genocide that's going on in Gaza, period.
Practically, I like Democrat. But I don't like this. Gaza, a lot of people are dying.
Have you voted for Democrats in the past?
I have.
And what would it take for you to vote for a Democrat in the future?
Being able to pay attention to the regular Americans and their economic needs.
They should make economics the forefront of their campaign.
People were not really feeling it in their pocket.
I voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016. I voted against Trump also in the 2018 midterms. Insulting us, playing on our emotions. All they do is shame you, and they just want to use like glitzy campaigns, and they get celebrities. And
like, if you're speaking the things that people want to hear about, I don't care what color you are, I'll vote for you.
So anyway, just a little bit of insight into what Zoran was actually doing. This is what Kyle was applauding, right? Because he went out there, he did field research. He said, I'm going to go talk to these people who are real New Yorkers that I want to represent, and then I'm going to win them over with a bold, progressive, democratic socialist message that's going to talk about rent freezes, that's going to talk about municipal grocery stores, that's going to talk about free busing, that's going to talk about making sure that the subway isn't always shut the fuck down. It's going to talk about making halal carts cheaper, make it easier for you to be a vendor on the street, because we're going to get rid of antiquated policies that basically amount to racketeering for people who came before you. Those are the kind of issues that he addressed. At no point did he run around and sing Kumbaya with Josh Hawley or bring Elon Musk about or talk about billionaires in a way that didn't signal that he wanted to abolish them. That's what Zoran did.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And you guys have seen now several clips, including the one we just played, of Cenk dissing Kyle Kulinski. Again, a good old friend, former member of the TYT network, right? Remember when Secular Talk used to be part of the TYT network back in the day? That went on for years, bro. Not only that, they co-founded Justice Democrats together. They've been on each other's shows many times, had a perfectly respectful past, despite that one Jimmy Dore related feud that they got into.
And it seemed like they buried the hatchet.
Right. To Kyle's credit, frankly, he was the bigger person in that situation.
He normally is. He's Kyle's a stand-up dude.
Yeah, 100% he is. Which is why it's so crazy that Jane keeps shitting all over him live on TYT, lashing out like a little bitch because your old friend beat you in a debate, beat you the fuck to shreds in a debate. Or ripped you the fuck to shreds, rather, in a debate. Either way, he can't get over that. So he keeps lashing out at Kyle, someone who keeps getting more and more popular, someone who's basically become the unofficial spokesperson of the left online, alongside maybe Sam Cedar, right, in this new Trump 2.0 era. Let's take a look. So we've seen how Cenk talks about that guy. Let's take a look, Zach, at the way they talk about fucking Joe Rogan.
What you think of the new
not just Cenk, but Ana. Look at the tone and the way that they glaze this motherfucker with no frustration whatsoever for the things Joe Rogan has done and what he's contributed to this fucking podcasting space over the last year or so specifically.
Yeah,
I don't know what you think of the new administration. Certainly there are things that I like about and some of their pro-tech posture and things like that. But what's happening now is it's kind of disappointing.
It's insane.
Yeah.
We were told there would be there's two things that are insane.
Joe Rogan had some pretty harsh words for the Trump administration on the latest episode of the Joe Rogan Experience, which was just released.
One is the targeting of migrant workers, not cartel members, not gang members, not drug dealers, just construction workers showing up in construction sites and raiding them, gardeners.
Yeah,
like really?
He was going to do.
So look, I think this is an important story for a couple of reasons.
And before we let Cenk respond, again, everyone knew that Trump was going to go after the gardeners and the fucking guys at Home Depot. He said mass deportations now. A month before voting started, he demonized the entire fucking immigrant population that was there legally in, what was that town in Ohio?
I can't remember the name, but it was in
Springfield, Ohio.
Springfield, Ohio. That's exactly what it was.
All these people that were here legally doing absolutely nothing the fuck wrong. He started talking about how they were eating cats and dogs and how we needed to get them out and how they were raping white women. I'm not even fucking kidding you guys. And he wasn't just talking about criminals. No, he's just talking about normal fucking citizens that had never committed a single fucking crime other than being here illegally. And now people like Joe Rogan want to turn around and act shocked. Like, oh, what? I had no idea what we were signing up for. I thought it was only going to be like MS-13 gang members or whatever.
And it's a lie. It is a lie that he thought that. What he's doing now is he's trying to cover up for being like a huge fucking Nazi fascist because he's seeing what's happening. He's seeing the alligator Alcatraz. He's seeing, oh my God, I actually got, I don't know if you can call it duped. I willingly went along with this guy who was an obvious fascist con man, right? And he told me what he was going to do. I had him on my fucking podcast. I could have asked him anything in the world. I could have said, Mr. President, what are your plans for undocumented people? Are you just going to get rid of the MS-13 members and we're going to keep, everybody else that's just a hardworking member of society? No. That wasn't even Kamala Harris's plan, pal. Okay, that's how far right we've moved in this country on the immigration issue. I came out here every single day and said, yes, I will be supporting Kamala Harris, but she needs to change how she's talking about immigration. Okay, we cannot do this. I'm going to carry a fucking machine gun and go to a border town and say, I'm not letting anybody. No, your message has to be empathy. Your message has to be humanity. Your message has to be, we are a nation that takes in the tired and poor and we rebuild them and they rebuild us. That's how we stay American, right? That's what you have to say. She did not do that. Rogan did not do that. And now he wants to turn around and be like, I didn't know he was only going to, I thought he was just taking the bad guys. No, you didn't. Don't fucking lie to me.
Yeah. And wait to see if any of that context gets brought up, any of that frustration that we obviously feel towards not just Rogan, but all these assholes that manufacture consent for Trump uncritically, had him on their show, didn't ask any tough questions, failed to do an ounce of real fucking journalism, only now to turn around and act like, oh, I have a heart, I have a soul. Fuck you. But again, let's see if Cenk brings up any of that.
Number one, this is the second time that Rogan has said the same thing, right? And what a lot of us don't realize, because we all live in different bubbles, is that these independent shows, what sometimes people are calling the bro shows, I'm going to try to call them independent podcasters from now on, or broadcasters.
Smart.
And so that independent media, the left was told that they're all right-wing, Trump-loving cultists, and the right probably thinks that they were exactly in the middle or something along those lines and have annoying left-wing opinions and stuff. So you have, as news people, our job is to relay to you what's actually happening in the world, right? And the reality is that most of those shows lean anywhere from a little right to a lot right, right? Some of them lean a little left, but not a lot, right? So Andrew Schultz, for example, voted for Trump, but is a lifelong Democrat. If you count Charlemagne and Breakfast Club, he's clearly a Democrat, right?
Andrew Schultz said that he voted for Donald Trump, quote, because he seemed like he got way more pussy. And I just vote for the kind of guy who I think gets the most pussy. Why the fuck would I care what that guy's news analysis was?
But Rogan, Theo Von, etc., while they might have supported Trump, but you all know that Rogan supported Bernie earlier, what they're really supporting, guys, is outsiders and populists. So you can say, no, I don't like that, or you can say, I love that, but that is what's.
And again, that's total fucking bullshit. Total fucking bullshit. Zach, I remember like 2022, Joe Rogan started flirting with supporting Ron DeSantis for president. I remember Kyle Kulinski had to go on his show, I think for the last time.
Yep.
I believe the last time Kyle went on Joe's show was to be like, hey, here's a list of fucking reasons a mile long as to why Ron DeSantis in no way aligns with the values that you purport to have on your show, right? Over and over again, Joe Rogan was hyping this dude up. Why? Because at the time, if you don't remember, back in the time before DeSantis challenged Trump for the primary, he was 100% considered the rising star in the GOP that would most likely be the nominee in 2024. Again, this was before the primary. Everyone kind of just assumed that Trump would flame out and somehow DeSantis would rise up and take the nomination. So Joe Rogan,
36 felonies didn't stick, unfortunately.
Right, exactly. And DeSantis and his wife clearly thought that was what was going to happen too. Everyone it really looked like DeSantis was going to be the next leader of the Republican Party. And Joe Rogan was right there talking about how he'd be such a great president because of how well he handled COVID-19. And, he did such a good job, unlike all the other governors, all this bullshit fucking propaganda. And again, Ron DeSantis is not a populist. Ron DeSantis is not an outsider. I get it. If you fucking voted for Trump in 2016 over Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz, you could kind of make that argument like, this guy's an outsider. Isn't this fucking crazy, bro? He says naughty words and, is like a brash fucking celebrity, unlike these other Republicans. I get it. 2016, 2015, what? It's 2024. It's 2022 when Joe Rogan was supporting Ron DeSantis. He's not a fucking outsider. There's no claim to that being a populist movement or an outsider movement whatsoever. It's just fascism. And Joe Rogan was more than ready to get on board with it. He still will be on board with it if a fucking Ron DeSantis runs in the future whenever Trump flames out. Clearly, this guy's not on our fucking side. And again, for Cenk to just be like, he's not a Republican. He's not a Trump supporter. He's just an outsider. He's just come on, bro. That's your analysis. This is a grown man we're talking about. This is a colleague of yours. And all you can do is glaze him by talking about what an outsider he is. He just loves outsiders, bro.
He's never supported a Democratic politician in his fucking life when he had a platform. Okay, nobody gave a fuck if he voted for Barack Obama in 2008 when he was the Fear Factor guy. Okay, let's talk about his history of supporting candidates while he's been the biggest podcaster in the world. Gary Johnson? All right, does that guy seem liberal to anybody? Does Gary Johnson give you an iota of that guy is on the left? No, he was a Republican governor who moved to the Libertarian Party because he was fucking crazy about taxes. That was him. He didn't know a goddamn thing about foreign policy. He didn't know a goddamn thing about how to run the country. He just knew he hated fucking taxes. And that
he didn't even know where Aleppo was or what Aleppo was.
He didn't know it was a place in fucking, like, on a map somewhere. He was like, what is Aleppo? And we're like, dude, you are not prepared to govern from a foreign policy. And Barack Obama's Syria foreign policy was a huge issue at that time. Huge issue at that time.
Yeah.
If you don't know about that right now, that's because it was 10 years old foreign policy. But if you're running to be president, you have to understand that Barack Obama did a bunch of bad shit in Syria, and we're still feeling the reverberations from that. So he didn't support that candidate. All he did was talk shit on Joe Biden. He was in love with every COVID conspiracy, vaccine conspiracy. Then he's like flirting with RFK for a while, like all of these kinds of deals. And then finally he settles on Donald Trump. So tell me, Cenk Uygur, when in fuck all did this guy say, you know what, for the better of society, I'm just going to support the Democrat. He's never done it. He has always picked somebody he thinks his audience would think is fucking cool. And yes, Bernie was having an enormous moment at one point where he was extremely popular on the internet, and that's why Joe Rogan flirted with him. It had fuck all to do with his belief system.
Yeah, and honestly, even that whole like Joe Rogan endorsing Bernie thing, a little bit over hyped in retrospect. It's not like Joe Rogan ever came out at a Bernie rally to give a speech and say like, this man is the fucking next president. You know, no, he's one time on his show in an offhand remark was like, yeah, I'll probably vote for Bernie. I like him more than Hillary. He seems honest. And then Bernie's campaign cut that into an ad that they spread all over social media, if you remember. But yeah, it was kind of an overhyped episode to begin with. That being said, let's get back to this.
And that is why
and Cenk's, dog shit analysis of the brosphere.
But that is what's happening. And so that is why Rogan does disagree with Trump plenty of times. But the other important thing outside of immigration as to why these shows are so important is because they truly are independent. So like they can get audience captured. I think Rogan for a while got guest captured.
And again, to call Rogan's show specifically, but pretty much all these guys, I don't know all their specific deals, but Rogan, to call him an independent podcast, bro, after he literally sold his soul and sold out for over $100 million Spotify contract. You're going to call that guy fucking independent? And we don't even have to go into all the issues with Spotify, how it totally fucks over musicians, how the owner of it is also like a huge investor in like AI drone, fucking defense contracting bullshit. It's a terrible company. We don't have to get into that and all the potential conflicts of interest that Spotify paying you might present. But again, what an insult to actual independent media. Again, TYT is independent media compared to fucking Joe Rogan, and we're actual independent media. TYT is not independent media, but again, the amount of money they take is minuscule compared to what Joe Rogan gets paid to run his fucking mouth. Literally $100 million fucking dollars. And you're going to call that independent? If that's independent, then everything is independent. Like, what the fuck do you even mean?
Ding, ding. Independent now is just branding. It's kind of like indie music now. Do you guys remember how indie music used to mean, like in the 90s, you weren't on a label, like you were making your own CDs and tapes and passing them out at your shows, and you were like booking your own tours, and you were doing the like, I'm really independent, bro. DIY forever, bro. Like punk rock, you know what I mean? That's what it used to mean. And then, unfortunately, some really, really good bands came up. And they were like, you know what? We're just going to call this sound that you guys have indie because you kind of sound like those indie bands back then. And you know what happened? We ended up getting like stomp clap bands, being like, I've been sleeping with my wife. I've been drinking a little whiskey, and they're like, that's an independent band. They just happen to be signed from Warner Brothers Records and their dad owns it. And it's like, that's not independent, right? So you got $100 million Spotify deal. You got fucking $30 million plus from venture capital at the Young Turks. You've got all these dudes taking ungodly sponsorship money, but do you know who is the real independent media? The guy Cenk was just taking a fucking shit on. Kyle Kulinski, who has never read a fucking advertisement, who has never picked up the phone for a sponsor, who has never taken any kind of investment of any kind. He said, you know what? I upload my videos on YouTube. I take the exact same terms as anybody who has no clout on YouTube, and I don't fucking do anything else.
Yep. No, that's so fucking well put.
For a while got guest captured, right? And so those are all things you got to look out for. Sponsor capture, all that stuff is legitimate, and and there's algorithmic incentives, etc. We got to look out for all that. And Dylan and Rogan and Theo Vaughn and all these guys. And what they're getting is a whole smattering of different opinions, right? And Dave Smith, and some of them are pro-Israel, some of them are anti-Israel. A lot of them are really concerned about what Israel's doing, right? A lot of them say, hey, you know what? We want to close the border, but don't do this to immigrants. And so even if you disagree with them on a majority of the issues, at least they're not a conveyor belt of corporate talking points.
100%, I totally agree.
And that makes a giant difference.
Or more importantly, partisan talking points. Because
One
the
more thing,
media.
I just want to throw
Basically,
Yeah, I just want to throw this up here, right? Because I want to take everyone down memory lane. We're going to show Cenk one more time when he's addressing the devastation of the big, beautiful bill, which obviously is filled with devastation. 16, 17 million people potentially losing their health care, at the very least 12 million. And we've got tweets like this to take a look at, right? So this is Cenk from, a couple weeks after the election, guys, because I think he's going to really be sad that people remember this and saved all these receipts. But don't worry, Janky Poo, I did my homework. I bust your ass for a living.
Oh God, this one is by far the cringiest thing Donald Trump ever tweeted in relation to Donald Trump and his victory. Oh my God.
He says, I've been trying to figure out why I'm more optimistic now than I was before the election, even though I was so against the guy who won. I know now. MAGA is not my mortal enemy, and neither is the extreme left. My mortal enemy is the establishment, and they have been defeated. Are you out of your mind? I couldn't believe he tweeted this one out. Donald Trump is the establishment. Okay, he just quashed the Jeffrey Epstein file. Okay, he just fucking gave a massive permanent handout to the rich. He kicked millions of people off of their health insurance. Okay, again, to fund the rich people that donated money to him. Okay, he's going to give $100 million extra dollars to ICE at the bare minimum.
Yeah.
We have $1 trillion military budget now, Jake. And guess who voted for it? That lady you had on your show claiming she was anti-war.
Yep, 100%. No, that's so fucking ridiculous. Again, to say that Donald Trump was ever not the establishment when he won, he was fucking president already for 4 goddamn years. And then he committed treason and tried to end American democracy on the way out. Yeah, the dude was already the fucking establishment. He was the president. And then you're going to act like the establishment has been defeated when he gets reinstalled. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy as fuck. So that's one of the dumbest tweets ever. And yeah, just so embarrassing from Cenk to act like Joe Rogan 6 months, 8 months too late coming out here with some mealy-mouthed fucking criticism of this guy somehow absolves him of the sin. Like, again, for me to actually give Rogan credit, he'd have to at least come out and admit that he was wrong and admit his complicity when it came to the manufacturing of consent for Trump and be like, oh shit, I really fucked up, guys. I got swept up in this. I didn't like Kamala. Joe Biden left a bad taste in my mouth. I was ready to give Trump another chance, but I fucked up. I shouldn't have done that. I'm never going to prostitute my platform out to these politicians ever again. Like, don't you need to at least admit you were wrong before you get all this credit, right? Before giving someone credit, shouldn't they at least admit the errors of their way? And Cenk's not even willing to do that. He's just like, who cares what Joe Rogan said 6 months ago? Who cares what role he played in getting Donald Trump elected? Now all I'm going to fixate on is this mealy-mouthed bullshit where he's going to come out and be like, oh, I'm not for gardeners getting deported. I'm not for the fucking lady who cleans your hotel room getting deported. I'm not a monster. It's like, well, you kind of fucking supported a monster that everyone knew was going to be a monster and who was a monster the first time he was in fucking office.
Yeah, it's just the most obvious thing in the world. And I don't have any fucking sympathy for Rogan, and I don't have any love in my heart for the guy. But I can tell you plain as day what Cenk's plan is, his angle here. Cenk is a motherfucking angler, okay? This dude's always angling. The problem is he's just not that smart, okay? He's just not that sophisticated. He does not know the landscape anymore, so he's fucking himself. He doesn't know that he'll never, ever, 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 ever get invited back on the Joe Rogan Experience because he's irrelevant. Joe Rogan doesn't owe him a favor. He is not his boy from the Fear Factor days. They didn't used to go out for steaks together, right? He went on his show one time, kind of bombed, and then Joe Rogan never called him again. Okay, they never had a rapport. Cenk at one point said that he wanted to like fight Joe Rogan and box him, and he
Go
was
back
like,
and watch our videos. We did 3 or 4 on it.
it was the most humiliating thing ever. Cenk is claiming he can bench 350 pounds. I go to the gym. I cannot bench even fucking anywhere. I don't sniff 300. Look at me. You guys know that. But you could take one look at Cenk. No, he doesn't sniff 350 either. You know what I mean? It was just a humiliating thing because Rogan actually can bench 350, and I've seen it and I believe it. Oh, not seen it, but
Maybe at one point. I don't know about these. Who knows?
Rogan is still jacked, bro.
Fair
He's on
enough.
every single testosterone replacement therapy, steroid, fucking everything.
Yeah,
and
fair
that's
enough.
the only reason he can. But
I do think, though, that Cenk, I believe you're right about one thing, and that's that Cenk really is delusional enough to think that he can get back on the Joe Rogan Experience. And I think that actually explains a decent amount of his behavior over the last couple of months. I really think that Cenk thinks that if he can just get on that platform and sweet talk Rogan and his audience, it'll make all of this right-wing pivoting finally pan out in the way he's wanted all along. Because clearly he set out to obtain this new right-wing audience, become more of a right-wing coded commentator or political influencer. It didn't really work. He didn't really succeed in replacing his old progressive audience with a conservative one. But I really think that he thinks that if he could just get on Rogan's show and talk to that audience, he could sort of complete the transition and rebuild his audience, from that portion of the internet. And I think that, again, that explains a lot. It explains him hanging out with RFK behind the scenes and posting photos of it. It explains him praising Joe Rogan on TYT constantly and on Twitter. I don't know if we reacted to it at the time, but towards the end of last year, Cenk put out a series of embarrassing tweets talking about how like the person of the year on the internet was Joe Rogan. And like, you know, whatever you want to say about Joe, he really opened up this space and, you know, elevated the influence of independent podcasters, which again is a total fucking farce. It's a total insult to actual independent media and actual independent podcasters like Zach and I, who don't take a dime of fucking any sponsorship money, let alone get paid hundreds of millions of dollars by Spotify. It's crazy. And no one even talks about the fact that Joe Rogan let Spotify remove all his most controversial episodes from the library.
Oh, all the times he said
that.
the N-word?
Yeah, and not even just those. Some of them, it wasn't even because of that. It was just like, who knows? Like, we're going to remove whichever ones we fucking want to. So Joe Rogan actually paid a lot for that. I mean, he pretends to be totally uncensored or whatever, but he actually gave up a lot of his freedom when he took that money from Spotify, and his podcast basically turned into straight dog shit almost immediately afterwards.
Yeah, it had no staying power. Whatever magic sauce he had lost when he moved to Austin, Texas. The show ended for me and I believe Gavin when he left Los Angeles. Los Angeles was the last thing that was keeping his head screwed on straight, because sometimes there would be real ass, normal people that would come on there and they would relate to Joe, and he would be like, oh yeah, that is right. And he would stop talking to like CIA assets and like fucking crazy people that just wanted to, red pill him. But
yeah, don't you think I'm right though about Cenk and how he really believes that if he could get on Joe Rogan, because I think that explains a lot of his crazy pandering, going on like Dr. Phil's show, again, posting photos with RFK. Like he's clearly angling, and Dr. Phil, RFK, obviously both friends of Joe Rogan. He's clearly trying to encroach into that social circle, and I really do think he thinks that if he could get on the Rogan Experience, that he would like convince all of these idiots in Rogan's audience to come watch TYT, bro. This is where the real, independent conversations are happening. We're just for outsiders at the Young Turks. We're the home of outsiders, bro. Like, that's what he wants to do. He doesn't want to hold Rogan accountable for any of his fucking sins, for lying to his audience, for platforming Donald Trump only to give him a pathetic, tepid softball interview, a total fucking hand job. No accountability whatsoever. Just thanks for being an outsider, bro. Yeah, you had the opportunity to talk to the fucking president for 3 hours and sucked him off the entire time. But yeah, here's the outsider award.
Yeah, no, I mean, that is obviously his plan. I think that was part of his goal for the other shows that he's went on. I think he just is falsely operating under the mentality that we're still in 2015. I think the last time Cenk had a grasp on the media landscape was 2015. I think for the last decade, he's been out at sea not knowing what the fuck to do. But I completely agree with you, because there was a time in the podcasting space, guys. People won't remember it now and they'll pretend it didn't exist, but I was there and I saw it. Going on the Joe Rogan Experience would make your fucking career. Okay. Yeah. Going on.
It helped Kyle a lot.
100%. But even random guys like Tim Dillon is jive fucking enormous now. Why? Because Joe Rogan loved his face swap of Meghan McCain, had him on, started helping him grow his show. Andrew Schultz was on like stupid shit on MTV, like Guy Code when I was a kid. Okay. That was what I knew Andrew Schultz from. I was like, wait, you were one of the throwaway comedians from an MTV show that got canceled. And then he started popping up everywhere with like Charlemagne the God and Rogan. And I'm like, okay, you made this guy's career. Theo Vaughn blew up after going on Rogan. And that's the second wave. That's the wave that we're in now. People don't remember the Joey Diaz era, the Ari Shaffir era, the Duncan Trussell era, the era where all of Joe Rogan's comic buddies were just getting extremely famous. People know the name Brendan Schaub on the internet because of Joe Rogan. That was just some random ass lackey that became a million sub podcaster for a time because he was Joe Rogan's boy. He didn't have a single bit of talent in him. Okay, Brian Callen, the list goes on and on, right? Cenk is still thinking, okay, if I can get a spot in the Joe Rogan podcast for 3 hours to talk to the guy, I'm going to leave with like 1 million new listeners. One, Rogan doesn't even have that kind of pull anymore, okay? If you watch his live streams on the internet, like when they get re-uploaded to YouTube, they have a fraction of the views that he was once getting. And the people who are on there are only listening to him because they want the right-wing propaganda, okay? They're not open to your random-ass, stupid, soft, leftist, bullshit outsiderness.
Yep. I 100% agree with that. I mean, we've been saying the Rogan, as Autumn Leaves said, the Rogan effect is over. We've been saying that. We perhaps were a little bit premature when we officially, declared that, what was it, a year ago or something? But I think you're right that his influence is on the it's waning. He seems, I don't know, whenever I watch the Joe Rogan Experience, I always just get the vibe that he doesn't really give that much of a fuck anymore. Like he doesn't really have much to actually add or contribute. He's kind of just going through the motions. Like when I was watching his Bernie interview, he didn't really seem to give that much of a fuck. It just kind of seemed like he was like,
kind of sucked.
It sucked. He was just like checked out, sort of. He didn't really seem like excited to be talking to Bernie. And not that he has to be like as excited as I would be, but like he didn't even seem like he really cared. It was just like an obligation. Something else I've noticed, comparing more modern Joe Rogan episodes, and I know this because sometimes I'll be scrolling through them trying to get a good screenshot, something I constantly have to do when I'm making thumbnails. I'll notice that Joe Rogan spends about 25% of any given episode talking. It's almost all the guests these days. Like it really does seem like Joe Rogan just shows up, throws the guest a prompt, and then lets them run their mouth for as long as possible without having to butt in very much. Again, he just kind of is lazy. He just sits there. He talks like 30, 20 percent of the episode, whereas it used to be like it actually felt like a real conversation where he would at least spend 50% of the episode talking. So at least that's just my anecdotal observations, but yeah, it really seems like he's kind of waning in popularity, which is crazy that again Cenk is or maybe not even waning in popularity, but just waning in effort and relevance. I don't know.
Influence, for sure.
And again, Cenk is so desperate to hitch his wagon to that and be like, oh yeah, if I can just get on that platform, this will all work out. Bullshit. It won't work out. You'll be roasted in the comment section, even if it did happen. Joe Rogan will probably condescend you. You know what I'm saying? He'll probably mispronounce your name in the first like 2 minutes and be like, Chunk Yogurt? Who the fuck are you? Like,
yeah, Cenk, are we still going to fight? Is that going to happen before, after? Did you want to do that on air? Because, I'm pretty limber, bro. I could do the splits. I just feel like Cenk would have to answer for all that shit.
Look out the door if you hear an ambulance. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there. Be there.